The movie begins by showing a guy named Stan Minton talking to an old lady about buying a cheap property. They end up arguing because she thinks it's too expensive, especially since it's in a not-so-great neighborhood. Stan tries to convince her, but out of the blue, the cops show up at his office. They take Stan to the police station, saying he cheated the old lady with a fake investment. To cut a long story short, Stan goes to court. His first lawyer, Maul, doesn't want to bribe the judge to get him out of trouble, so Stan fires him. He hires a new lawyer, Popper, who's a bit shady. Popper gets the judge to give Stan a 3-year prison sentence with 6 months on probation. Popper tells Stan to run away, but Stan can't because all his money is frozen. Meanwhile, Stan's wife, Mindy, wants to have kids, but he says it's too much of a hassle and turns her down. She gets upset and leaves him. Stan's had enough of all these problems, so he goes to a bar. He pays an ex-convict to chat with him and spill the beans about prison life. The ex-con tells him it's a horrible place, full of bullying and harassment from other inmates, and the guards don't do much about it. So, after Stan learned about how tough things were in prison, he tried different ways to avoid getting picked on. He thought about using steroids to get big and strong, but it didn't work out. One day, while he was at a karate dojo, he got really bored with the same old exercises. He didn't feel like he was improving, so he challenged a student to a fight, but he got knocked down pretty easily. Stan got mad about losing, so he fought back against the student and beat him up really bad. Because of that, he got kicked out of the dojo. Later, he met an old guy outside the dojo who was super strong. This old man could even break a stone wall with one punch. Stan asked him to teach him martial arts, promising to pay him back later. Stan even brought the old man to his house and introduced him to Mindy as the Master. So, Stan and the Master lived together for a while, but Mindy started feeling uneasy because the Master was messy and smoked a lot. During this time, Stan was not only learning martial arts from the Master, but also had to follow a strict diet and disciplined routine to get stronger. Stan got so into his training that he started neglecting Mindy, and she felt really lonely. Eventually, she decided to leave because she thought Stan didn't care about her anymore. Stan tried to make her stay, but she insisted on leaving. Even after Mindy left, Stan kept training with the Master. He went through some tough exercises and got really good at martial arts. To celebrate, he took the Master and Popper to a restaurant. That's when the Master told Stan that he was the second student he ever taught. He also mentioned that he hoped Stan never met his first student, because that guy used the martial arts for bad things. After dinner, Stan decides to put his martial arts skills to the test by challenging Master Chu, the karate dojo owner who had kicked him out before. Surprisingly, Master Chu agrees to the challenge and they have a fight. But thanks to the training he got from the Master and his hard work, Stan now knows his stuff, and he defeats Master Chu. Feeling more confident, Stan decides to turn himself into the police to serve his sentence. The Master and Popper go with him, while Mindy watches from a distance with tears in her eyes. The scene changes to a bus carrying lots of inmates on their way to prison. Before they even get there, one inmate tries to bother Stan, but he quickly puts the guy in his place and warns him not to mess with him. When they arrive at the prison, Stan gets put in a cell with an old man named Larry Shorts. Stan asks Larry about what's going on in the prison and who the toughest inmates are. While they're out in the prison yard, Larry points out some of the different gangs in the prison to Stan. There's the black gang led by Cleon, the Mexicans gang led by Juanito, and the Nazi gang led by Patterson. They also spot Big Raymond, who's the toughest and likes to bully new inmates. He's about to harm Robbie, one of the newcomers who arrived with Stan. Because Big Raymond is seen as the toughest, Stan decides to challenge him to a fight. Surprisingly, Stan easily defeats the big guy. After that, Stan gets into more trouble with the Nazi and black gangs. He challenges them all to fights, and even though they team up against him, Stan beats them all by himself. Little did they know, Francis Gask, a prison warden, is watching from his office and seems to have some plans involving Stan. Since Stan defeated the gang leaders and Big Raymond, all the inmates are afraid of him. Robbie goes up to Stan and thanks him for helping him out. Stan is trying to get used to life in prison, and he's making makeshift weapons to protect himself. One day, the prison warden, Gask, calls him into his office. Stan goes there, and Gask offers him cigars and whiskey. Gask tells Stan he wants to use the valuable land the prison is on for real estate, and he thinks Stan can help because he knows about property stuff. He makes Stan a tempting offer, a shorter prison sentence and early parole if Stan helps him out. Stan can't resist, so he agrees. Later in the prison bathroom, Patterson tries to attack Stan while he's taking a shower, but Stan manages to stop him using one of his homemade self-defense weapons. From then on, Stan starts keeping an eye on the prison and the inmates from a distance. There are fights and small riots happening every day. So, Stan is in Gask's office, going through property documents. Gask introduces him to a guy named Dang, who's working with them on real estate stuff. Stan notices a tattoo on Dang's hand and figures out that he's part of the mafia. Stan talks to Gask about some parts of their agreement with Dang that don't seem fair to him. When Dang hears this, he starts to see Stan as a threat to his plans for making big money from the real estate project. The next day, Stan calls Popper to ask if his wife has started divorce proceedings. But Popper says that Mindy hasn't filed for divorce yet. After this call, Dang and his guys approach Popper and beat him up. Meanwhile, Stan misses his wife and decides to send her a letter. Mindy has returned home and is living with the master now. After spending several months in prison, Stan started to adapt to life behind bars. He became well known among the inmates and decided it was time to change things around. Stan gathered all the inmates in one place and took away any violent stuff they had. He encouraged everyone to do fun and positive things together. Stan also made it clear that bullying and harassment wouldn't be tolerated, and he helped Big Raymond find a friend so he wouldn't hurt others anymore. While Stan was having a meal in the cafeteria, Robbie and his two buddies came up to him. They wanted to join Stan's group after hearing his inspiring talk on the field. Soon, many other inmates wanted to be part of his group too. On the other hand, Larry gave Stan a letter from Mindy. She wanted to meet him in prison, according to the letter. Over time, things in the prison start to get better thanks to Stan's motivation. There's no more fighting or chaos, and the prisoners are getting along. Finally, Stan gets to meet Mindy again after a long time, and they make up. Seeing the prison become peaceful, Gask starts to worry and calls Stan to meet him urgently in his office. Gask is concerned because the calm atmosphere in the prison might mess up his plans. It turns out Gask had a plan to create so much chaos in the prison that the authorities would order the shooting of all the inmates. This was part of his scheme to turn the prison land into real estate. But with Stan bringing peace to the prison, Gask's plan is at risk of failing. The old man then threatens Stan, telling him to make things chaotic again, or Dang will harm him badly. So Stan talked to Popper, his lawyer, about Gask's request to create chaos in the prison to get an early release. Popper advised him to think it over and consider complying to get out sooner. After a lot of thinking, Stan reluctantly agreed to the warden's request. Stan knew Gask planned to create a big mess when the prison board came for an inspection. He asked Larry to stay in their cell and not go out to the yard because he was worried about his safety. But Larry sensed something was wrong and alerted the other prisoners. They started planning something together. The day came for the prison board's visit. The council members arrived for their routine inspection. The prison guards were armed with tools to control the inmates, who were expected to cause trouble. Meanwhile, Stan was with the prison council to work on his parole, which Gask had promised him. But at the last moment, Stan had a change of heart. He couldn't let his fellow prisoners get shot by the guards. So he purposely delayed his own release and rushed back to prevent the chaos. As the prisoners head to the yard, Dang blocks Stan. He forces Stan into a fight because he messed up Dang and Gask's plans. It turns out Dang is the master's first student and has martial skills to match Stan's. They have a tough battle, but in the end, Stan manages to defeat Dang. Stan hurries to catch up with Gask to stop the chaos, but the prison guards intervene when he tries to get the other prisoners to stop fighting. On the other hand, the inmates in the yard follow the plan they made with Larry. Instead of fighting, they start dancing together so the guards can't shoot them because it's not seen as a violation. Gask gets really mad and takes a gun from one of the guards, shooting at the inmates right in front of the prison council who are there. Just when Gask is about to shoot Stan, Mindy comes to the rescue. Turns out, his wife and the master secretly got into the prison and learned about the chaos. 3 years later, Stan is finally released from prison, now under new management. Gask, on the other hand, is an inmate there, and he's already under the control of Big Raymond. Popper, Stan's shady lawyer, is also a new inmate. Mindy picks up Stan from prison, along with the master and their child, Mindy Jr., and that's how the movie ends. So the moral of the story is always remember, the key to avoiding prison is to start a prison dance revolution, enlist your wife and martial arts master as your escape team, and always say no to shady real estate deals with cigar-smoking mafia members.